The main topic is the Circular Economy Action Plan. However, of course, when we talk about circular economy, I think we need to start from the context in which we are living, which is unfortunately the very same reason why we are all meeting online and not unfortunately in Milan, as it would have been very nice to do, which is the COVID situation and the pandemic, the current pandemic. When it comes to circular economy, I think it is clear when we read and when we listen to, for example, the high-level speeches coming from President von der Leyen, the fact that circular economy is one of the pillars that the Commission would like the recovery to use and to have in order to make sure that the recovery is also a green recovery at the same time. Take a look, for example, at recent documents that the Commission have shared in September. The 17th of September, there was the annual sustainable growth strategy with some documents on guidance, for example, to member states on how to eventually fill the plans for the recovery resilience facility. And you will see there that circular economy indeed is one of the main area where we think that there is a good potential, of course, depending on the bilateral cooperation with member states. That's always been the case. So when we discuss today and tomorrow and in the future with the circular economy community, the relevance for a circular economy today, we need to make sure that we also stress the fact that in the post-COVID world, circular economy is not only still relevant, but even more relevant than before, precisely because it's a tool that we can use in order to make sure that the growth is created, and at the same time, local job and sustainable growth becomes eventually the norm in Europe. So the Circular Economy Action Plan we were saying before, the Circular Economy Action Plan is part of the European Green Deal. As you probably all know, the European Green Deal is the main structure, the main architecture for the vision that the Commission is bringing forward for basically the next decade. So trying to achieve climate neutrality by 2050. The action plan for circular economy by the Commission is one of the pillars. So, and I will be discussing with you about this in a matter of seconds. But at the same time, it's very important to know that we as Commission are working at the same time to make sure that we mainstream circular economy also in the other agendas that link with the European Green Deal. So, for example, climate neutrality, so climate change. How can circular economy help us in meeting the targets for climate change? This is something that we are working on and we will be implementing in the years to come together, of course, with the co-legislators. When it comes, for example, to the strategy from farm to fork, on the food system, very relevant today for the discussions. The farm to fork has circularity embedded in the way it sees the opportunity for the food chain to become sustainable. Smart mobility at the same time. The action plan is not targeting, for example, directly smart mobility, but at the same time, in the strategy for smart mobility that the Commission is working on, the circular economy is going to be, of course, a factor in making sure that it is in line with what we say when it comes to the circular economy. So what is the Circular Economy Action Plan? In 2015, we had the first action plan, some of you might remember, during the previous Commission, the Juncker Commission. 54 action, all implemented. The new action plan, I would say, if compared with the previous one, has an overarching principle that makes it possibly, I think, one of the most ambitious documents on circular economy today, which is the idea that in order to achieve circularity, you don't need only to work on the waste angle of circular economy, but you also need to work on innovation, on products, on consumption, and so on and so forth. So there is this comprehensive vision that I think is one of the main messages, let's say, of this action. When it comes to products, I think it is worth mentioning some major development from the Commission side, but also, of course, from the European side in general, because with the legislative initiative, the Commission is going to work with the co-legislators, meaning the European Parliament and the Council for the European Union, in order to create a so-called sustainable product policy framework. This product policy framework is looking at developing circular economy from three perspectives. The first pillar of this framework will be on products design. So basically expanding the current legislation, which is the Eco-Design Directive, setting the minimum standards for certain products to enter the EU market, and trying to expand as much as possible this legislation to non-energy related products, meaning that up until now we had criteria for circular economy, for example, durability, reparability, for TVs, for washing machines, and so on and so forth. The idea is to, together with the co-legislator, meaning that this is of course a development is taking place today, trying to expand as much as possible the scope of this development. On the, let's say, innovative side of this aspect, we will be also looking at products as a service solution for the circular economy, digital solution, meaning trying to work on the nexus between circularity and digitalizations, because these are the two, parallel transitions that are going to be very important for us in the years to come. For example, among others, trying to work on a so-called digital product passport. So knowing that, as they say very often, information is power, information on products, waste, on chemical components, and so on and so forth is power, meaning that it can enable us to evolve in the circular economy. This is something that we will try to work on in the years to come, and the deadline and the scope of this legislation time-wise is 2021. So this is something that will happen at the end of next year. When it comes to the other pillar that I wanted to share with you, it's consumers. When it comes to consumers, we do understand and we do acknowledge in the Circular Economy Action Plan that without the consumers being within the scope of the circular economy, being enabled and empowered to make sustainable decisions, the circular economy cannot really become mainstream in the sense that we want it to become. So we will revise, for example, consumer law for the consumer to make sure that they receive trustworthy and relevant information on products at the point of sale. This is very relevant also for some of today's discussions. We will work to establish a so-called new right to repair. So trying to embed the right to repair and so circularity principle within the consumer law agenda. And at the same time, we will be working on the so-called green public procurement aspect of circular economy. So trying to work with public buyers at all levels of government, starting of course from member states, to propose mandatory green public procurement criteria for sectoral legislation, so mandatory at the EU level. And this is something that I think, in the context of the evolving situation in Europe, could be very powerful for circular economy to become more mainstreamed. Another aspect that I think is relevant for the overall overarching topic of today, which is in a way innovation, is the third pillar of this sustainable product policy framework, which is circularity in production processes. So industrial symbiosis is one of the examples that we could consider as part of this of the scope of these production processes. There is a new industrial strategy for Europe, and the industrial strategy and the Circular Economy Action Plan are working actually in synergy from our perspective, in order to support with financial and non-financial means the circularity in production processes, for example, by supporting industrial symbiosis at the level of big enterprises, but also the level of SMEs, which is, of course, very relevant for the discussion when it comes to Italy and the context, in the economic context of the Italian industrial fabric, for example. Together with this, let's say, horizontal action on circular economy, meaning horizontal targeting more or less all the sectors in the economy. In the action plan, we are identifying some, we call them key product value chain. It's quite of a difficult wording, but very easily these are priority sector for us. Priority sectors where we deem that there are very good opportunities to reap up the benefits of circular economy, and at the same time where actions is needed as soon as possible. One of the actions one of the sectors is food and nutrients, for example. We have construction and buildings, which is in a way related also with the whole idea of cities and smart mobility. Electronics and ICT, battery in vehicles, plastics as a consequence also, and as a follow-up to what we've been doing in the past years with the European strategy for plastics, packaging, and one that I would like to mention as possibly one flagship for the years to come is textiles. So creating and developing a strategy for textiles, targeting, meaning the entire life cycle of products, not only waste management, but also secondary materials, but also products, but also consumption for textiles, which we set to develop in 2021 as well. Apart from that, I think what is interesting from the overarching principles of the circular economy action plan is that if compared with what we've done before, there is a new consideration is taking place at the very high level of the European Commission, but also the European debate, which is the need to make sure that the circular transition that we are, of course, trying to speed up with different agendas and with different tools, is just at the same time. Meaning that we make sure that people and regions and cities are not actually falling behind in developing this transition. So in the context, for example, of the Just Transition Fund, the circular economy is one of the ways for these regions to become more and more competitive in the European market. I would like also to start another chapter, which is related with monitoring. Francesco Castellano before was mentioning the importance of monitoring for the circular economy. This is a consideration that we at the European Commission fully support, and we, in fact, it's in a way reflected in the action plan. So we have in place a monitoring framework for the circular economy at European level. In the next year, we will try to come up with new indicators. For example, we are working together with our scientific officers from the scientific agency of the European Commission on trying to come up with indicators on resource use, on consumption. So trying to make sure that we reflect the comprehensive perspective on circular economy policy level, also on the monitoring aspect. Plus, the European semester and the fact that the circular economy is now embedded in the European semester, which in principle was mostly on macroeconomic aspect, and now we are also including consideration with regards to the circular economy. I think I still have a couple of minutes before my time is left, and
you have 1 minute.
I have 1 minute. It will be more than enough. Thanks, Mario. It will be more than enough because I would like to conclude this intervention, thanking you for listening and for interest in the circular economy, of course, by mentioning research and innovation specifically and how this is going to be taken forward by the Commission. Something very relevant for today's and tomorrow's discussion. In the action plan, we mentioned some of the main investment tools and funds for the circular economy research and innovation aspects. There are going to be, for example, Horizon Europe from 2021 in the next multi-annual financial framework. Of course, the MFF is still under negotiation, also in the context of the recovery package. So this, when it comes to the specific figures, is still yet to be decided. But what is important is that we, as the European Commission, already identified as a priority for Horizon Europe, and for example, the European Regional Development Fund, the possibility for Horizon Europe and the funds of the European Union to support circular economy by, for example, supporting developments in indicators in data, novel materials, products, very important substitution and elimination of hazardous substances, circular business models related with, for example, industrial symbiosis and so on and so forth, production and recycling technologies. So we have, and I'm concluding, I think a very ambitious program, ambitions for the years to come. It will be implemented with the help also of the co-legislators. There is a very good support in place from the Parliament and from the Council on this. At the same time, these stakeholders will be active part and players in these transitions. And with financial and non-financial help from the Commission's fund, I think we can together eventually make this vision, which is very ambitious, a reality in the years to come. So I thank Mario, eventually for the 30-second more of time that I got, and I wish you a very successful event.
Thank you, Federico. You know, as a moderator, I must be strict, but probably we have time for just for a question. I have one, if there are no from the audience. So, you know, we have for sure a great opportunity to decarbonize, but to really decarbonize, we must have the public opinion on board. What is the European Commission doing on this regard?
Thanks for the question. It's a very relevant question and a very important one. It comes related with decarbonization. It comes related with circular economy. So for the green transition in general, from the Commission's perspective, I think we are pushing forward three main, let's say, lines of actions to make sure that this transition is indeed a collective one. On the one hand, we have set up, as I mentioned before, funds and resources in order to tackle specifically those regions and sectors that are going to be affected by the transition, to make sure that no one is left behind. The Just Transition Fund, which is, by the way, targeting also some areas and regions in Italy at the same time, is one tool that will bring forward in the years to come to make sure that everybody is on board. At the same time, there is this idea that is, I think, very relevant for the circular economy, but it's taking also place when it comes to climate mitigation and climate adaptation, which is the idea to empower and to engage with stakeholders at all levels, from the public sector, but also from the private sector. So when it comes to climate action, for example, there is a platform that the Commission is setting up on climate neutrality. And the idea is to bring forward all the energies from the different sectors to have a platform to exchange information and eventually trying to find bottlenecks on how to implement a very ambitious vision, which is the one towards climate neutrality. This is already happening, by the way, when it comes to circular economy, because there is the European Circular Economy Stakeholder platform in place since 2017. And the idea is really to give the message that the transition is going to be successful if and only if we work on it together, not only as legislators and public authorities, but also with academia, with citizens, and so on and so forth. And the third and last part, I think, of this encompassing objective is on communications. So the Commission, I think, in the last couple of years, and especially since the beginning of this of the mandate of the current Commission, is multiplying the efforts from a communication perspective to communicate in the right way how we can achieve together and the climate neutrality and circular economy. For example, by creating platforms where stakeholders can engage with participants, by increasing the possibility for Commission speakers to be part of events all around Europe. This is, I think, one example that I hope it's going to be successful. And at the same time, the high-level speakers of the Commission. I mean, let's take Commissioner von der Leyen, the President von der Leyen, Executive Vice President Timmermans, is having a direct channel of contact with member states, and at the same time with all levels of governance. So not only member states, but also regions and local authorities, to make sure that indeed this is a common agenda, and the ideas and the barriers that are coming from the different levels are actually being taken forward for the next steps.